Hello, everybody. Welcome. JC, how are you?
Good, Yaman. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well. Hustle Town, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Still waiting for the space on Tesla Live on YouTube to open up.
It should be open now. Yeah, I don't know why it's taken a few seconds now this time. And same issue last time, right? Is it? There it is. It should be on now.
Yeah, I see it now.
Okay. JC, how is FSD doing for you? Give us an update.
It's doing great. I did a couple of FSD drives yesterday, as well as used actually Smart Summon AS, and it was excellent. It's yeah, there's just great. I mean, I'm looking forward to the next update. I think there's been a point release 12.5.4.1 or something like that, but yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, about Tesla sent me a DM and said, let's see what he said. He said he can't join today. So here's the summary that he sent. Another wave went out in the past hour or so. This was yesterday. 12.5.4.1, aka 2024.32.10, has now been released to more than 2% of the fleet in North America. Vehicles on the 2024.32 branch are eligible. Hardware 3 and Hardware 4. As I mentioned earlier, Taiwan is getting this software update too, which is interesting. What do you make of Taiwan getting it too?
Yeah, that's interesting to me as well. I kind of came out of left field on me. We've heard so much about FSD in Europe getting rolled out hopefully in 2025, early 2025 in China, and Taiwan just kind of came out of left field. And not only going to it, but going to it like the full suite, like 12.5.5 and here pretty soon. So I'm assuming there's a story to that, but yeah, I'm not privy to any of it.
Mario, welcome.
Hey, Yaman. Good to chat with you again. Happy to be anticipating 1010 with you guys.
Yeah. What do you make of FSD starting to show up in the code in Taiwan?
I didn't catch it. It's showing up where in Taiwan?
So About Tesla says the software update that's going out, 12.5.4.1, is also being sent to vehicles in Taiwan.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. I wish I had something to contribute there. That's awesome.
But if you had to guess, what would you guess?
Yeah, Taiwan is, I mean, obviously a place where we're all somewhat concerned about, right? Is it a political signal that it's Taiwan specifically?
Interesting. I don't know. That's
Yeah,
an interesting angle. But before
yeah.
we go to that, so on live chat, people are telling me that we are progressing well on the number of likes. And Drew is asking how fast can we get to 100 today. Let's see if we can break the record. The link is at the top of your screen. So if you're listening to this on X, please go to the link at the top and like the video. It really helps grow the channel. We're going to take a 30-second break to do that. JC, you counted so well yesterday. People were like, man, he's counting so well. I better go hit that. We're up to 45. Wow.
Even though I missed, and imagine how many likes you would have got if I didn't miss two of the numbers.
Yeah, did you get criticized for your Spanish?
No, I got criticized because I missed number 22. I blew right past it. I went from 23 to 21.
Yeah. Well, let's see if Alexander can count down from. Alexander, can you count down in your language, Swedish, back from 100, 110?
Sure.
I'm kidding. No, don't do that.
Okay.
There's no sarcasm in Sweden. No, I think we're good. We can continue. Alexander, what do you make of FSD going out in Taiwan?
Well, at least good for them that they are not in the European Union. So yeah, I guess it's good for them, and it's nice to see that they are stretching outside the US for once.
Yeah, Hustle Town, do you have anything to add on that?
It's just a precursor. I just like to see them be able to move these regions to these branches, like even under our very noses. It can happen overnight. So it's just good to see.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect a huge wide adoption right off the bat if anything like that happens. But let's say, for example, Tesla has making progress with the Taiwanese government, then maybe they're kind of getting ready to start rolling it out. But who knows? It's going to take some time. I'm sure they're going to have to collect some local data. So, give it like another year. Just like you ramp production, it may take like another year to ramp, even after it becomes legal, available in a country. It's going to take some time to train it for that country and also for consumer adoption as well. Mario.
Yeah, seems like an interesting test bed for China, right? And maybe even to push China a little bit. Like, hey, man, we got it working in Taiwan. You guys better give us approval.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, JC, Drew Soul says in YouTube live chat, for every like above 200, JC will sing a minute in country Spanglish.
That's awesome. Well, now we know I've got to be a little bit more careful. Fortunately, that it didn't get picked up by the algorithm. But yeah, we did a little bit of research on Grok, and looks like I'm down to school fight songs and songs written before 1929 due to U.S. copyright laws.
That's so funny. When you say we did research on Grok, who do you mean by we?
Oh, that's me then. Yeah, the royal we.
Oh, I got you. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's really interesting. Really interesting. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I don't think singing without any sort of cover song should be a huge deal, but I'll do some research into it. But I think a lot of people enjoyed, yesterday. So anyway, we're up to 60 likes, and that's in 10 minutes. That's amazing. If we get to 115 minutes, we're on track to get to our goal of 1,000 per episode. That goal is going to be, I really appreciate everyone helping out with this one, because we're actually tracking way better than the average channel in terms of likes to views ratio and all that. So I think that will translate to higher growth in the coming weeks, but we'll see. Alexander, a lot going on here in Europe. First of all, I see your exchanges and replies with others about regulation in Europe. Can you give us an update on what's happening on FSD in Europe?
Yeah, so first of all, I got an update the other day, and there were rumors that the hands-on wheel nag would be gone, but I didn't notice that in the test I did just like a half an hour ago. So, and I'm on hardware 3, so I think it's hardware 4 that actually has this feature now in Europe. And
Sorry, hold on. So are you saying with this latest update in Europe and hardware 4 vehicles, you're going to be able to have nag-free FSD? Is that what you said?
That's what I've seen people talk about, but I haven't seen it myself. So I tried it on my car, but it didn't work. It was the same 15-second delay before nag.
Okay, so if somebody, man, in those 15 seconds, you must have been hoping really hard. But if somebody in audience has a car in Europe and they have tried this with this latest update, please come up, request to speak, come up to the speaker board and let us know how it went. And that would be interesting. So obviously, by the way, let me just correct myself from 10 seconds ago. It's not FSD in Europe. It's going to be the old software stack, right, Alexander?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Uzi, welcome. Uzi is going to run the show starting at 2:00. We're going to have a Palantir employee hop in. And if I know Uzi at all, he's very excited very nervous, and probably prepare like 3 years for this. Right, Uzi?
Absolutely. Did not use Grok at all.
Yeah, did not use Grok at all. Exactly. That's so funny. I have a list of questions too, but I'm gonna let you run the show for a little bit, and then you know the person. So how long have you known this person, by the way? Actually, you know what? Before we switch to that, let me just catch up with a couple of people. Inflexity, any news on your front?
We had oil prices rising today, and other than that, we had the Tesla chief information officer quitting. Nothing else.
Chief information officer. What does that mean? Oh, you mean like tech support kind of
I
thing?
think, no, I think he was responsible for the data center deployment.
Oh, so he couldn't hit some timelines, and then got yelled at, and then quit.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah. Well, par for the course. He's welcome to come up to speaker board here and contribute to our understanding of the company, industry, and the future. All right, let's go to Dallas. Dallas, how are you doing?
Howdy, how's it going?
Good. Any news on your front?
I'm just kind of waiting for 12541. Definitely excited to try out the changes that they listed for the summon features. I'm just glad that they're starting to do uh, software update notes. That's the first time I've seen them in a while, and I hope that's something that sticks around.
Well, would you like to say a few words for the AI gods that are listening and throw a few cents in the wish pond so you get the update?
Yeah, I guess the gods of the early access program, listen to me, come help me out. Would be much appreciated.
What is that? No, scratch that from the record, Your Honor. Try again with extreme enthusiasm, just like Omar.
Hey, early access gods, this is Omar. FSD's perfect. I never have interventions, and I live in California, and I love paying high taxes. Thanks.
Yeah, you should get it by the end of today. Alexander.
You Americans are so greedy. You should be praying for us in Europe.
All right. JC, would you like to say a few words for Europe?
It's going to take a lot more than a few words for Europe. Let me talk to the Scandinavian people right now. How pathetic is it that a culture that carved boats out of wood, mahogany from the deepest recesses of Norwegian and Swedish forest with their hands, bare hands, got out on the North Sea in wooden boats, braved the worst seas on earth to go raid and pillage. And now you are scared of somebody not looking at the road going 35 miles an hour for 30 seconds. What happened to you?
We pretty much went from bloodthirsty Vikings to Greta Thunberg in 1,000 years.
I didn't get that last one. A crepe? You went from Vikings to crepes?
To Greta Thunberg.
I'm going to go to Grok on that one.
Yeah, that's all right. Alexander, a couple of news items from Europe. EU has the votes to impose tariffs on Chinese imports. Germany abstained because their automakers lobbied for Germany to not approve tariffs, which I thought was really interesting because they are afraid of a backlash from China. And I guess quite a few German automakers their sales and profit. They generate their sales and profits, majority of it, in China. So they're really afraid of a pushback from the Chinese government. But even with Germany abstaining, France, Greece, Italy, and Poland have the votes together to get these tariffs pushed through, which means up to 45% of tariffs on cars coming from China. Any comments on that?
Yeah, we failed to build batteries in Europe, and that is pretty much hitting them in the behind now. And if they implement tariffs, that's going to probably hit batteries as well, and that's going to make European electric vehicles even more expensive.
Yeah. And Stellantis, Uzi?
I just saw McDonald's posted about the photo we were speculating on yesterday for hours.
What did they say?
It's the streamer Kai with the burger and the same chair and the same receipt. So tough.
Yeah, I see
Thank
your
God.
reply. So no Optimus. That's all right. I mean, yesterday's conversation was a lot of fun, and a word of congratulations to all the speakers and listeners and everybody who helped push the episode, share the episode. We achieved 500 watch hours, which is a record for the channel. So we're moving in the right direction. And, we did mention in that segment that this is very unlikely in the shorter term, but it's going to happen in the longer term. And I think it was worth the discussion. And I really enjoyed the banter and the speculation and the wild guesses. Some creativity is always welcome. Uzi?
The banter was excellent yesterday. Felt like the space was popping. I did recheck out the photo. And I kept in mind some people from the audience came to the speaker board and said, "Hey, that's Kai Snatch Chat." And if you look at the receipt said something like, "Thanks for your order. W's in the chat." The caption is "Chat's about to pop off 10:10." So yeah, it is framed in the way that Twitch streamers speak. So once I had more time after, I was like, "Oh, this is not for us." But hey, hospitality is perfect for Optimus, and if there's any fast food chain that has this scale or has the innovative approach and scale, it's McDonald's. So maybe.
Okay. Let's just one final thing. Uzi, when do you think we're going to see Optimus in a McDonald's, let's say?
Well, I don't want to contradict myself with, after our conversation. So maybe 2026, 2027. It could be one of the first ones sent out, and it's in a prototype shop. And if that counts, then it's achieved the criteria.
Okay. Bear on board, everybody. But before we go to him and he brings down the mood like he did yesterday, please go to the top of our screens, click the YouTube link. That will take you to YouTube, and click the like button on the video. We're up to 70 likes, which is a great pace. Our goal is to get to 1,000. We're doing really, really well. And so let's take 30 seconds while Magic counts down from 30. Magic?
Hey, am I counting or am I talking?
Yeah, count it down from 30. Come on.
All right, it's been about 30 seconds. I think we're good.
Did you just count it in your head?
Estimated, yeah.
Is that how you make all your decisions? Estimation from in 2 seconds? That kind of explains why you're short this stock.
Yeah, I think me and the chief information officer are on the same page. I mean, I think they just left, right? About a week before the Tesla Robotaxi and earnings. So pretty interesting. I mean,
yeah, I'm guessing he failed to hit some milestones and Elon yelled at him, and then he's like, I can't take this.
Yeah, milestones, lies, propaganda, whatever you want to call it.
All right. Thanks for bringing the mood down. We were too happy. What was I going to say? Oh, Uzi. So we have half hour until the Palantir employee comes, right? Can you give us an overview about him? Just a couple of sentences for the audience.
Yeah. I mean, Chad is technically his official title is the forward deployed architect. I'm going to ask him to explain what that means in the day-to-day operations sense, but for the most part, he's a builder working with Palantir software. He makes most of the demos that I enjoy watching. For the most part, I'm going to try to focus on his relationship to Tesla because I think he does use FSD, which is cool. Palantir in a commercial sense for the most part, and we're going to really focus on Foundry and then building up to AIP, which is their AI software. So Chad, for the most part, is a really active, I don't know, member of Tesla. No, sorry, of Palantir on X, and so he's kind of like a man on the ground, but also building the demo. So he's quite front facing. It'll be a good chat.
How long have you known him?
I've not ever had like a one-on-one conversation, so this is my first time. I've been familiar with him since February. I watched one of his demo videos and I was captured by it, and that was my gateway into Palantir.
And how'd you get connected with him for this? Did you just reach out to him in DMs or something?
Yes, I did. You know, man on a mission, right?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's really helpful. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm going to be a fly on the wall, although I have a list of questions, and I'm going to hop in. How much time does he have with us?
I assume it's going to just be an hour. I'm going to follow up with him right now. Try to see when if he's confirmed coming. He said yesterday too. But it should be an hour in my head.
Okay, cool. And if folks on YouTube have a question for the Palantir employee chat, please leave a question into the live chat, and I'll try to work it in there. Ken says Boeing uses Foundry and sings its praises. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Magic, do you have any thoughts do you have an estimate for Q3 margin?
Haven't worked out the numbers yet, but definitely lower. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. So you don't think the couple $100 million that Tesla is going to recognize for FSD deferred revenue is going to make much of a difference?
I don't think it's going to offset the decrease in margin. I mean, if somebody wants to produce some estimates, we can talk about it. I mean, based on just the sheer volume of the discounts and the immateriality of whatever that FSD revenue is, it's not going to offset the decrease in margin.
Okay. Yeah, I estimate the FSD deferred revenue recognition in the couple $100 million range for Q3. So not material at this time. As I've said to my patrons as well for several weeks, I think FSD will become material to Tesla's financial statements sometime at the end of next year to 2026. And but it's a good start. We heard reports of take rates increasing. We've heard many reports of people finding it useful, not just a party trick anymore. So I think this is good stuff.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think everybody's in their little bubble about what they think. Most people don't mind driving a car yet right now. So I think everybody on this space is really like, they don't like driving a car. They like having the car drive themselves, which is fine. But I don't think that's really a big problem when you go ask the population. But, that's just my opinion.
Mario?
To his point, when I asked Google about FSD in China, right? The also asked by Google is Tesla still operating in China? How is Tesla performing in China? Is Tesla struggling in China? Why is BYD better than Tesla? So it's amazing to know, in our little bubble, we all know about Tesla, but a lot of people still have no clue.
Wait, who is the person you were speaking with?
No, this was from Google, where it gives you people also ask, and those were the Google. You click on this, and so people are asking Google, is Tesla still operating in China? That was the number 2 thing.
Okay. If anyone in the audience wants to know more about Palantir, or they know about Palantir and they would like a question to the employee that's going to come in about half hour, please request to speak and tell us what your question is. Tell us your thoughts. Tell us what you want to get out of the conversation. I would really appreciate that. Hustle Town.
Yeah, just talking about what Magic was speaking on, the need for humans to not drive. The 40,000 plus deaths on highways alone is enough. I don't care if people want to continue to drive. We need to, kind of bring that number down significantly. And FSD is going to be the way to do it. Waymo's going to have its purpose, but the generalized solution of Tesla, that's going to be where we're going to be saving lives.
Yeah. It's just that people don't think that way, man. I agree with you. And I actually wrote an article on Medium back in 2016, I think, or 2017, one of those years. Kind of exactly talking about what you just talked about, and giving some statistics and everything. And it's been 5+ years since I wrote the article that I thought this should be a priority. And people just don't think of kind of these tail end risks. Like, what if I get into an accident? Could this software reduce my probability of an injury by 1%, 10%, whatever? They don't really care about those. They just mostly are in their day-to-day commutes and focusing on what's next day at most. It's a shame, but that's just the way it is.
Don't get me wrong, Magic. I enjoy not driving. I'm one of those guys that just enjoys it. But I also see the benefits where I'm not trying to, take a life. It's game over once you commit vehicular manslaughter, and the software is going to help me not do that. So I see it like that.
Alexander?
Yeah, Tesla still does like collision avoidance if you haven't like disabled the function.
Got JC?
Yeah, I'm with you, Yaman. This one puzzles me because, and I've mentioned it before, we lose 45,000 Americans a year on our roads, and that's the entire amount of soldiers and Marines we lost in Vietnam over a 10-year span. And but get this, it's 5 times the amount of people that die from gunshot wounds in our country. So something that's a fifth of that number, and we literally are having a debate about the Second Amendment, but vehicular death, which is 5 times more than gunshot wounds in this country. And like Magic said, and I'm not even disagreeing with Magic. I think he's right. I think the majority of Americans just don't see it as an issue because maybe it doesn't personally affect them. But just remember the stats. It's 5 times more people die on our roads than die of gunshot wounds in this country. An entire Vietnam every year.
Okay, no hands mode for the next 2-3 minutes while I post the sponsor links in the reply. No hands mode. Magic, go ahead, and then Alexander, and then please just have a discussion among yourselves while I do this in the background.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. The issue, I don't think anybody's disagreeing that it's a tragedy of how many people die on the road. I think Tesla has their obviously bias in terms of, oh, this is the solution. Now, we don't know. It's a beta software. So the issue I have is that people are testing software that's not complete, that's in beta on the road, and other participants are not signing up for it. I've been next to Teslas that phantom brake in front of me, and the regular people don't like to be guinea pigs to beta software. Now, once we solve it, once actually the cars are safely able to, drive themselves, and there's a clear evidence that it's reducing accidents, I think everybody's going to be in favor of that. It's not showing up in the data right now.
Yeah, Magic, the only rebuttal that I'm not the only, but the main rebuttal I would have to that is, I mean, I have 4 kids, Magic, and I had to teach all of them how to drive. And I couldn't do it in my living room. I had to, just like anybody else, I don't know if you have kids, Magic, but the way you teach your kids is you have to get into the passenger seat and literally, you're gripping on to every handle in the car, right? But you got to do it because you cannot be a functioning member of our society at a certain point and hold down a job unless you teach your kid how to drive. And you got to you start out in the parking lot, but then you gotta you can there's no video game you can do to teach your child how to drive and not get killed. You have to get them out on the road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I would agree. I think I think we both agree on the problem. I think everybody here, obviously, is financially incentivized to push their version of the solution. We don't know what the solution is. The problem is clear, and we know that we need more safety on the road. Everybody here is saying this is the answer. I don't believe that's the case. We can agree on the problem and not the solution.
Yeah, I think the only part I had a problem with is you saying that you didn't sign up for it. It's like, well, nobody signed up for my 16-year-old to go pass his learner's permit and then get on Kingwood Drive. But he's got to do it. If he wants to hold down a job 2 years later, I'm going to have to put him in the driver's seat with that learner's permit and be in the passenger seat next to him and get him out on a busy road going 55 miles an hour. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you didn't sign up for that, Magic. None of it.
Also, Teslas without FSD is still one of the safest cars you can drive. And that information is going around. People start to learn. So that's another positive thing, I think.
I could share a personal rideshare experience. I was hit by a driver and almost killed a couple of years ago. And it was because a driver was running sort of a red light, yellow light. My car was totaled and a lot of people were seriously injured. The time I was driving a car that had Tesla technology, but I'll just say that it wasn't a Tesla. So it didn't have any kind of full self-driving or anything like that. If my car had the type of full self-driving or even features that the Teslas have now, or even in the 2019 era, there's no way that impact would have happened. It would have detected that car and stopped, and a lot of people would have been a lot less injured. And that's pretty prolific in the Bay Area, that kind of situation.
Okay, good. Just a quick reminder for new speakers, you must stay on mute when somebody else is talking. Okay, just be careful with your mute button, otherwise we get a lot of static, reduces the quality for listeners. And also, let's see, I posted our sponsor links at the top. I'm going to read a 30-second audio ads for our sponsors. And in the meantime, if you're on X, please take a moment to go up to the top of our screens and like the video. Tesla Live is proudly sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. And because you're part of the Tesla Live community, Joa is hooking you up. Use code TSLA Live for a special discount and pay more. Pay more buys, sells, trades, and recycles electronics because Paymore believes the best technology doesn't have to come at the cost of our planet or your wallet. Join the Paymore revolution. Visit one of their 100 stores near you or visit paymore.com. Both of these links are at the top of your screens. I appreciate when people say a couple of words of thank you for our sponsors. And you can do so in the tweets at the top. And also, thank you for those of you who would like the YouTube video. We are at, let's see, 92. We're about to get to 100 in the first half hour. So that's great. Good pace. All right. Stellantis is seeing quite a few headwinds continuing day after day after day. Lots of negative news about Stellantis, the maker of Alfa Romeo, Jeep, Chrysler, and a bunch of other brands. Their production in Italy, so they're part Italy ownership, part French ownership. Production is down by 70% in Italy, which is incredible. They're having issues in China. having issues with inventories in the US. Another brand that's having lots of issues with inventory in the US is Ford. According to an analyst that was on CNBC this morning, Ford could be the next domino to fall across legacy automakers. Ford's inventory in terms of days of supply is higher than Stellantis, is what the analyst said. I haven't verified this independently. So interesting times. If you remember, last year, Stellantis was the most profitable automaker. And from that to going down to negative $10 billion free cash flow forecast for this year is a hell of a U-turn. But it was predicted in this space. All right. Toyota is investing $1 billion into VTOLs. Just a fun headline that I saw today. So if you want to fly, go Toyota, I guess. Uzi?
Yeah, not exactly car related, but along big headlines yesterday was there was reporting Sam Altman said to investors not to look at XAI, Claude, and SSI. I don't know if we want to discuss that or some other time.
Yeah, let's talk about it. What do you think about that?
There's this Larry Ellison quote, which is like, let me get it from my camera. It's like, it's not enough if I win, the others have to lose. And I think that's kind of Sam Altman's MO right there. You know, bearing if that's true. Obviously, he's built a great company. Well, it used to be a non-for-profit, but telling investors what to do usually raises eyebrows, and so it suggests insecurity.
Do you think this is going to raise some antitrust concerns?
Yeah, I wasn't sure about the legality of what OpenAI is, and if like I don't know how that's honestly measured. I do think that's would that be considered antitrust if you're telling investors not to invest in the competition? I don't know, honestly. I did have the same intuition that wouldn't be legal if it was a public company.
Interesting. Dallas?
Yeah, I just think I think he touched on the best point. I think it shows a little bit of insecurity more than anything, or at least that was my first reaction. I mean, they're having some leadership issues for sure. They're losing really good talent. I think their lead in the industry was extremely large, and I think it's dwindling. And I think they're seeing companies become competition, and I think it's kind of scaring them a little bit. So
I'm going to push back a little bit to Dallas. Dallas, what evidence do you have that OpenAI's lead is dwindling?
I mean, that's my take on it. I don't have any cited sources showing that. That's just my read on the market.
Okay, let's be data oriented. If you see anything to support that statement, please let me know, because that is, that's something I track. According to Hugging Face leadership boards, OpenAI is dominating the first few stops, the first few spots. So I don't see any evidence in the data just yet that OpenAI's lead is dwindling. But what I would have said to that question, if I were you, is something along the lines of the top leadership leaving, jumping ship. So that could lead to, in the coming periods, a dwindling. But that's a forecast. So that you might use a word like it could dwindle instead of it is dwindling. And then Uzi. I'm going to ask Uzi in a second to argue the other side of what he said, but let's go to Alexander, who had his hand up first.
Yeah. So they blocked the latest version of ChatGPT in Europe due to the fact that you are not allowed to read a person's or a user's emotions with a voice assistant, which is probably breaking their efforts to get subscriptions in Europe.
So OpenAI stopped ChatGPT in Europe?
No, just the latest function where you get the advanced voice assistant, because that assistant can read emotions, and you are not allowed to do that in Europe with AI.
Okay. Yeah, I mean they're slowing down the learning and adoption of AI in Europe. I don't know if how that's going to play out for Europe. They already have a lot of problems.
My point is that it kind of breaks the development for them in a way, because they can't like cash in on subscription in the same amount that they could if the feature was allowed.
See, I saw a CNBC reporting on this, or maybe it was Bloomberg. I'm not sure, but it says something like, they raised this much money. They're worth about 150 or whatever the number is, $150 billion, and then they go, but they're losing $5 billion. I'm like, literally in this sentence before, you said 200 million weekly users, and now you're saying they lost 5 billion. If you just do the fucking math, like how much they have to raise their monthly subscription to generate $5 billion? Not much, So they can get rid of that loss whenever they want. This is the same mistake that people made about Tesla back in 2018, 19. Yeah, the company is growing. The headwind they have is their leadership is jumping ship. So I would want to understand how integral, important that the people who left were to the company's future prospects, and what the second the people coming in instead can do. So that's kind of like where the analysis needs to be. All right, Uzi.
I just received update from Chad. He said 2 is good, and it'll probably be 20 to 30 minutes. So just so we're all aware.
Okay, thank you. Cool. Let's see. Any other comments on OpenAI, ChatGPT, Europe? Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang came out and said, quote, demand for Blackwell chips is insane. And on the back of that comment, the stock's up another 3-4%. I continue to think that this company is overvalued. And in the last, the stock is basically the same level since May, June, July, August, September, which is interesting. It's a $3 trillion company. Dallas.
They always say when there's a gold rush, the best business to be in is selling gold pans. And I think there's a lot to be said there. Everyone's rushing to the river to go pan gold, and Nvidia is the one really killing it here. And it's a consistent, business. Everyone's going to be needing this kind of architecture for the AI boom, and demand shows no sign of dwindling. So I personally think it's we could argue all day back and forth on whether it's a good time to buy Nvidia, but they're not going anywhere. That's for sure.
Sorry, did you just say that Nvidia is just going to be around in 10 years as a company? Is that the claim? I think everyone agrees with that statement.
No, yeah, I mean, that's a given. No, I'm just saying they're in the right position for the market of AI.
Are you invested?
Just a couple shares, nothing crazy with them. I missed the boat, I would say, for sure.
You still have your Rivian shares?
Yes, I unfortunately am going to ride that one out.
Okay. I don't know if it's going to be out, but Mario.
Yeah, I'm with JC. I mean, a lot of people make the comparison between the dot-com bubble, right? Dot-com bubble, Amazon had 0 earnings, right? Not a profitable company. Nvidia at these levels is trading for 57 price to earnings ratio. We know PE is not everything. We know their margins are insanely humongous. And so far, they've been able to hold on to them and maintain this growth. So I missed it as well, just to add that in there.
All right, let's Uzi.
Yeah, not to be rude, but I didn't miss it. I do think the stock should consolidate for a little while. And Blackwell's coming out next year, so I don't really get I get the last 6 months it's been flat since the stock split. I'll say between Tesla dropping 3% and Palantir and Nvidia being up 3%, I'm breaking even. So try to keep them in balance.
Let's do a quick poll across the speaker boards. Do you think Nvidia stock will be lower or higher a year from today? Uzi,
Higher for sure.
Dallas,
Higher for sure. Yeah.
Mario,
Sorry, higher.
Alexander,
Higher.
JC,
Higher.
Hustletown.
Higher.
And I'll take lower.
Is that a coffee bet?
It is.
The speaker board v. Yaman.
Yeah.
Yaman, who
know what I
would be their
noticed?
competitor?
It's not just a matter of competition. But you know what I realized when I was watching these CNBC, Bloomberg, especially CNBC interviews, is they make a point of what their guests got right. Okay, they kind of announced it at the beginning of the interview. And I know for a fact, I've been doing this for years now, listening to them and taking notes about what said. I know for a fact some of these people are just wrong on certain things, but they never acknowledge the mistakes. And I think that's because they want their audience to watch what the guest has to say next, so that they sell ads and all that stuff. I'm the opposite. I'm like calling people out for what they missed out on mostly. And that's because I want everyone to learn from their mistakes and not make the fucking mistake again. So that's a key difference between those investing shows and this space. Who would be their competition? Many. I mean, just look at the announcements from like Apple went with Google TPUs instead of NVIDIA chips. Microsoft, I believe, went with AMD instead of NVIDIA. So there are alternatives, and that gap is going to likely to shrink rather than grow further. So that means NVIDIA's margins will have to come down. It's just a matter of how much their margins come down. That's one. And then the second is I'm also bearish on macroeconomics, as you all know. So it's not just about competition, it's also about macro call. So I'll take the other side of the entire speaker board. I think the stock will be lower in a year. Dallas?
I think it's also material to mention that Tesla might be a competitor in the silicon space. I know that Elon's mentioned multiple times that right now they're heavily reliant on NVIDIA's silicon, but something they'd like to get into is developing their own. And, they need a lot of silicon. So that would be a competitor.
Yeah, I mean, companies will, design chips for their own specific purposes, better than NVIDIA can. So that also reduces demand growth. JC?
Yeah, I actually agree with Uzi. I just don't think it's going to be a year from now. I don't think Tesla would be able to compete with Blackwell 12 months from now.
Yeah, Tesla is not going to compete with Blackwell. Let me type this down. The coffee bet we just made with everybody stay on the board. So actually, I'm going to type this out later after the show. Let me just take a screenshot here of who is in the audience. I mean the speaker board, and then we'll do our coffee bet. Cool. Alexander.
You are going to go bankrupt if you lose this bet. You know this, right?
I mean, how confident are you that NVIDIA stock is going to be higher a year from today?
50-50. I mean, I'm not in the stock anymore, so I don't really care. But it seemed to me like it would be higher.
So Dallas has shares. Uzi, do you have shares?
Of NVIDIA, yes.
Who else has shares on the board of NVIDIA? Dallas, you just said you have shares. Yeah, Dallas? Dallas? Dallas is having connection issues again, I think.
He just sold them.
He's checking his broker statement.
Let's move him down, bring him back up. That's so funny. All right. Before Chad comes, Dallas?
Yeah, sorry about that. My phone switched from cellular to Wi-Fi. I think
Yeah, just turn off Wi-Fi. Just do cellular. That's
Okay.
what I do.
Yeah, that's what I do as well.
Yeah, you don't want a switch when you don't want it. Did you do it?
Yeah, now I'm on cellular.
Okay. So what do you got?
No, my comment was just I feel like a year is too short term, and maybe that's just me being a long investor. But a year could be flat with Nvidia. I mean, the upside for me on Nvidia is like 5 to 8 years. So I don't think a year really matters.
Okay, cool. Cool. Let's see. So that covers the Nvidia topic. We have 5 minutes until Chad jumps on. We talked about just a quick couple of news items about ports closures. Strike at Eastern ports. Now it's the third day. The ports that are on strike taking 70% of automotive imports. Expected to start having a major impact if it lasts for 3-4 weeks or longer. But the first week or two shouldn't be a big deal. They are not far away from on wage growth, on wage increase. They're not that far away from each other, the two parties. But on automation is the main sticking points. The unions don't want any automation, even though all European and Chinese ports are fully automated, as we saw the videos. So I don't know how that's going to work out. President Biden kind of started hinting already, even though he said he's not going to use his power to end the strike. He already started hinting that he's calling for a deal, but he's on the side of unions, obviously. And on the macroeconomics front, we're going to get on Friday the jobs report for September. And the ports closure is going to have, if it lasts more than 2 weeks, it's going to have a major impact on the October unemployment report, estimated to be about 80,000 jobs. So this is a major deal. And then the other news item, hurricane, following the news on that front for supply chain concerns. And just one stunning stat. More than 1 million people are without power. More than 1 million people affected by the hurricane, I believe about 8 states, remain without power, which is incredible in 2024. I mean, we have the technology to not do that, like to solve that. And yet, that's a big deal. Starlink is with emergency responders. They're trying to get more Starlink out there. So SpaceX played a great role over there as well. 3 minutes to Chad joins. Any guesses on Q4 production and deliveries? Just briefly, let's go around the speaker board. How do you all expect Q4 to shape up for Tesla? Let's start with Uzi.
I'm curious about China. I don't know if the rate cut will help the economy. I assume the rate cut will help the economy. I don't know how it's going to affect Tesla financing. It seems like there's significant demand there, even though the consumer doesn't seem to be spending except for on Teslas from all I know. And then it's the year end, so it should be seasonally higher. But does that mean more Model X's and S's? I'd presume so. So I don't want to give a delivery estimate now without seeing any data. Oh, Chad's here.
Okay. Yeah, I see Chad if he wants to come up. We're ready for him. And any other comments from the rest of the speaker board about Q4 production deliveries? Anyone? Going once, going twice, 3. Okay, We'll just wait for Chad to join the speaker board. All right, there he is. Chad, welcome. How are you?
Hey, good. Just trying to get my AirPods set up here. The expensive Apple things that don't ever work. 1 second. You guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. And if you have iPhone 16, AirPods actually reduce your sound quality.
I have iPhone 15. So hopefully
Okay,
it works
yeah.
out here. They seem to be connected.
Okay, cool.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And thank you, Uzi, for arranging this interview. So Uzi told me that you have about 20, 30 minutes. Uzi, why don't you take over from here?
Hey, Chad, we're excited to have you. I sent around your demo, AIP demo video yesterday. I know we have 20, 30 minutes, so I don't want to dominate with questions and get people interested in asking questions, but we saw your forward deployed architect. Do you mind explaining what that is?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Brad. And I can go over a little more time if we got some good questions and fun things to talk about. So as you guys probably know on Twitter, I love talking about this stuff in this space. But me as a forward deployed architect, and this is kind of different roles across Palantir, whether you're a forward deployed engineer. Really, the context here is like we are building stuff at the edge with our customers, and so actually most of the software that you see and is built by the engineers that are like side by side with a customer. And when there's a feature that you need, you're building the feature that is required for that point in time. And so, Sham likes to say that our FDEs and forward deployed architects and engineers, they eat the pain of our customers and excrete product, and that's really kind of our goal. So the idea is I'm not sitting back, in an office and just kind of building what I think is there. It's like, no, this is actually what's needed to solve these problems. And so that's kind of the shift compared to kind of other kind of SaaS companies.
Yeah, so Shyam is a CTO. I love reading his writings. I think he's a great background in philosophy. One thing I've heard the CEO, Alex Karp, talk about is how Palantir sends engineers to the front line. Do you mind explaining what that is, and have you been on the front line doing that exact thing?
Yeah, it goes. I mean, it's our whole go-to-market. It's our whole strategy. It really comes back to being at the edge. So, like, I actually was a customer. So, some people probably don't know this. So, I actually was a customer. I was leading the data analyst group at Tyson Foods back in 2020 and brought in Palantir then. I went to Amazon, and then I came to Palantir a couple years ago. So I got to experience from a customer perspective bringing Palantir, and yes, the forward deployed engineers were on site with me. Often they would be out at the edge on chicken plants and factories, seeing what the real problem is. Because it's one thing to have a requirements document. It's another thing to go push racks of product around a warehouse and figure out like how difficult it is and what the real problems are. And so, like, we go out in the field and see the problems firsthand. And so that goes into not only when we're problem solving with our customers and building that software, but also in our go to market strategy around boot camps. So you might hear some of that, like boot camps. What is that? Boot camps are we show up. It can be 1 to 4 or 5 days. Generally, they're about 2 to 3 days. And we show up and usually we say, give us your hardest problem, the problem you have not been able to solve, the problem you've been struggling with your existing tools or other pilots. Give us that problem. We'll, of course, kind of go through, connect the system. We'll give you a stack. We'll do kind of some prep work to make sure that the data is available and those things. But we show up on site at your facility. We'll host at your office, wherever. And we build live with you, in front of you, in the product. And so we build that like proof of concept and prove it working on your data with your systems in, like 2 or 3 days. And so, like, it's really cool to see, 3 or 4 engineers show up and be able to execute with these customers engineers on some of the hardest problems. And then at the end of it, we present to whoever kind of the different executives or sponsors might be and show them like, hey, this is what the software can do, and look at how quickly we did it. And it works. Not just some demo that I'm giving you from my desk here. This is your data, your engineers, your people in it. And there's no faster way for people to grasp some of the concepts than getting their hands on it. So like that forward deployed applies across the whole company.
Yeah, so one of the Palantir, I want to say maxims is software that works. I think a lot of the testing community with FSD, would appeal to that kind of thinking. Well, I guess first, I want to mention, just for everyone's context, some of the companies Palantir works with, because we were talking about Airbus. I don't know if Boeing, they work with Boeing, AWS, Microsoft, basically the entire military intelligence agencies. So Palantir is working with a ton of different clients, and across commercial to the government, the DoD. Go like is double clicking into real world AI. I think I'd love to bridge the gap between the Palantir community and the Tesla community. Do you mind?
Well, I'm in both.
Yeah. Do you mind explaining your FSD experience? Because that's a lot of what we talk about in this space. And I don't know if Iman wants to jump in and ask some questions too here.
Yeah, I was an early Tesla adopter. I had one of the first kind of Model 3s with FSD back in 2018. And I actually was introduced kind of to the Tesla firsthand with my old CTO. Actually, gave a talk at the first FoundryCon. Scott Spradley, who was the CTO of Tyson, and now he's at L&R. He threw me his keys one day in the office and said, "Let's go for a ride." And it was his Model S, and man, I was hooked. It was pretty awesome. And then Model 3 came out. I ordered as quickly as I could before I really even knew what it was, and I kind of pre-ordered it. And but I've had FSD, been kind of the front line of beta testing along with everyone else. And I live in Arkansas, so we've got different roads, back roads, dirt roads, and I'm testing it all over the place. And so for me, it's amazing to see kind of the progression and the experience, the back and forth. Like for me, as a real as a dev working in AI, I know that the trials and tribulations and of trying different techniques, and to see that working and scaling through FSD with Tesla is pretty awesome. And I know how hard it is to do what they're doing. And I worked on some of this large scale model training at Amazon as well. And so just so many complexities, whether it's running these models at the edge in these cars, deploying the software and scaling it, testing it, or doing the model training with what he's doing with some of the Dojo and other kind of supercomputers. That stuff is just fascinating. And to see other people that are doing that, testing it in the real world, I think that same approach of we're pushing this to the edge and getting that real world feedback, whether it's through through Tesla doing it and how they're doing it. It's that same type of approach of how we're doing it in the real world. And that's the quickest way to iterate and learn to really make the progress that we see.
Okay, great. Chad, thank you very much for joining us again. I have a whole list of questions for you. So if you can stay for more than 20 minutes, that's even great.
Yeah,
and I'm sure
I can stay to the 40-minute mark or so.
Okay, great. And I see Palantir-oriented accounts in the audience. They're welcome to request to speak and ask questions directly to Chad as well. I really want to get to know the company a bit more, Chad. I think, maybe partly because it's a secretive company, or it has been until they started expanding into the commercial sector. People don't know much about it. And a lot of the content that I see on the company is more around the stock price and short-term trading rather than the company's fundamentals. So I'm so happy that you're here. What drew you to the company? Why did you want to work for them?
Well, it's a funny story. I never heard of Palantir in 2020. Never heard of Alex Karp. Never knew the company. Never knew of anybody. And crisis hit with COVID, and I was running a lot of work in that space of trying to keep operations open during COVID. And Palantir kind of landed on my desk from our chairman. And my first reaction to Palantir was, I don't need another data integration tool. What's this? These guys, I've never heard of them. I've already got all the big hyperscalers. I don't need this. That was my first reaction. And then they just talked about some of their experience with CDC and helping drive Project Warp Speed through CDC, and it piqued my interest a bit. Got hands on with the tools, and there was that light bulb moment of holy shit, this is everything I've always wanted and tried to build, but it's all in one platform and it's already there. And I had access to all of the top engineering resources and tools from all the three big hyperscalers. So for me to see this company that I never heard of, to then find these tools that I've always kind of dreamed of, was pretty amazing. And really where it got exciting was the light bulb moment of, okay, it's not just about creating a data lake or a model and a report. At the end of the day, I'll only add value if I drive an action, and that action drives value. So the difference where we start to see in some of the tools is like it's action oriented. It's going to drive outcomes. It's workflows. It's not just a report. It's it's real time. It's moving from local optimization to global optimization. And those are the kind of things that I started to build out as a customer first. And so, like I saw the real hand capabilities compared to trying to use these other tools to do that same thing. And I could go deploy them in weeks. And that was game changing for me as a customer. And so I was hooked. I was hooked on as an engineer that I could add value like that and that quickly. And then when I left, I thought I would have fun and scale some stuff at Amazon. That wasn't as much fun as I was hoping. And I called Ted, who leads up our commercial business, and was like, I want to have fun again. And so coming to Palantir, it was really the intersection. I still remember the day when Alex Karp announced AIP, and ChatGPT had come out. Some of this, okay, we're working on these things. I was working on these large teacher models, so we had called them before at Amazon, and it was really that intersection. Like, holy crap, you have to have the ontology to really get value out of these LLMs in an enterprise context, because these models are trained on the web, not on your enterprise data, and they need to have live, real facts up to the second. Well, you're not going to be constantly training models. So how do we start to facilitate that? And that's really where some of our core technology had came in. And what I had worked with the ontology, and we can get into more in that in a minute, was really that intersection of now like LLMs and ontology together is really how you start to actually drive value and execute through them. So like, how do you leverage them and that kind of thing? So that was why I got excited. And so I came on board to Palantir a year and a half ago or something like that. And it's been just a wild ride of fun. Obviously, the stock price and everything else is fun, but really, at the end of the day, it's driving value for customers and seeing the stories. Like, we did this for their first boot camp, and it was just an experiment. And to see how that has now scaled as a mechanism where our headcount has actually kind of shrunk or stayed flat, while revenue and profit have grown, and we're continuing to scale customers. Like those moments of like aha are like addictive. And so whether it's the deep technical stuff we're in on product development, or it's like business, like we're going to reinvent how we go to market, like it's just fun across the board from that perspective. So I've enjoyed the journey so far, and there's a lot more in store here.
Okay, Uzi.
Yeah, so I feel like you've been touching around Ontology, a little bit of Foundry. Can you walk us through from Foundry to Ontology to AIP now?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So there's a lot of myths about like all the different products and everything else. So if we kind of start, there's a couple different platforms. Well, Gotham, that's the kind of the government space, USG, intelligence agency. That's for how we track down terrorists and things like that. And there's Apollo, and that's how we can deploy software and a couple things. But the main thing that people kind of know in the commercial space is Foundry. And so Foundry is really the tools that are like end to end to ingest data, cleanse it, harmonize it, health, catalog it, create an ontology, and we can touch on what the ontology is in a minute. And then build these applications and these workflows that are actionable on top of that. And it can be custom applications. We have low code or no code options. There's a lot of different things you can build on top of it, but it is end to end. So the entire platform is about 60 different applications across, and there's about 400 plus microservices in the background that all scale on Kubernetes. So for the technical people, so we hyperscale. So we've got customers that are in the smaller terabytes to petabytes. So huge scaling differences across the platform. But the goal here is it's end to end, and all the tools are integrated and work together. And so Foundry is kind of the basis. You can think of it that way, as like, this is how I get and work with my data. The ontology is the semantic, like the live semantic knowledge graph of your business. It's made up not only the data, but the logic and the actions. And we see those three things as the three components you need to be able to make a decision and make that decision real. And that decision is, then you evaluate, did that decision add value that I was hoping for? And so then we have Foundry, that builds the ontology, you can build these applications. And then on top of that is where AIP comes in. And so you can think of it this way: if you have AIP, you have Foundry. If you have Foundry, it was deployed with Apollo. And so Apollo would deploy this whole stack and manage software updates, infrastructure, all that kind of stuff across any of the hyperscalers we deploy to, or even stuff out at the edge. Then you have Foundry, and then AIP is really where it's the generative AI components that are integrated throughout the platform. And those integrations can be everything from like coding assistants, like different co-pilots that are people used to when they're building code, debugging code. It can be things to help build pipelines with natural language components. It can be AIP logics, which is our like AIP agent framework, where you can actually build agentic workflows, evaluations around it, how you manage those at scale, like all of these kind of different things are in there. So top level though, AIP is the generative AI components weaved throughout Foundry and the whole platform. And then Foundry is really that whole integration end to end. And then that's all deployed and managed with Apollo.
Well, I want to make sure if anyone has questions on this part, please jump in now. I mean, I'm familiar with it already.
I'll deploy. There's a video I have. I can put a link in the comments. There's a video I have here where I kind of go through about a 12 or 13-minute deep dive of like end-to-end architecture, and I think that's helpful for people because I can wave my hands and I can talk about it, but seeing it in action on video really helps.
Your videos
Chad,
are fantastic.
Okay.
Go for it, man.
Chad, can you explain to us in simple terms how Foundry and Gotham work, and how similar are the two platforms?
I think there's more and more like commonalities across them, but they're definitely different workflows, different parameters they have to work on. The core thread between them is the ontology. And the ontology, just I kind of made a high level talk about data, logic, and actions. It is truly the like real time, and digital twin such as a bullshit term, but it really is like the digital twin of your business process, of like the ground truth of what's happening in the real world. So normally, like if you're a BI analyst, you're going to build a dimensional data warehouse, you're going to have dimensions and facts, and you're going to put stuff in there, and then you throw Power BI on top of it. You're always translating to like these system languages. And really what we think about the ontology is it's the natural language of how the business or how the real world is operating. And so because the capabilities we have there are focused on how do you model things to how they really work, not to a system language so this tool will work, then that means you can have other things naturally happen on top of there. So for example, when you have the ontology, and here's how they kind of link together between Gotham and Foundry is, I have this core ontology that models out how the real world is operating right now, whether it's my manufacturing plant or it's the battlefield, both the same kind of thing. I model that out. Now I can create these optimizations or these algorithms on the top of there. So if I want to run a simulation, like let me run a simulation with these 4 different variables and see what is the total outcome on my business as a whole. Or in the same thing in the battlefield. But that's orchestrated through the ontology because you're connecting those two things together, the nouns and verbs of your business. And so that it acts as the fabric that allows you to run these simulations, these what if scenarios to understand that when I make this decision upstream, what's the impact downstream 4 orders of magnitude to these people? Can I alert them so they have enough time to react? Right. So that's where the ontology is across both. You can think of that in the battlefield or in the enterprise. And that football video you guys posted was a great example. It's the analogy of like, our focus is, if you're in a football game and you're just watching the scoreboard, you're only going to know when you lose. And really where the ontology is, it's like the real-time playbook that it helps you make the call in the moment. So it's, for Airbus, it's on the factory floor, something happened. What is the optimal decision I can make in a global context right now? Not based on a plan that is stale or not real. It's how do I make the best decision with what I know right now? So that same kind of thing can be applied to the battlefield as well.
You said earlier that you go to a client site with a team of engineers and you say, give us your hardest problem. What's an example? What are a couple of examples of hardest problems that you are presented with?
Yeah, I mean, it varies on industry, but I mean, I can say like in the manufacturing space, for example, um, some places have pretty simplistic bill of materials or bombs, and it's like pretty easy to understand how to build a product. I take these 5, raw materials, I put them through a process and a production line or wherever, and I produce a finished good and I ship it out. Well, now as you scale that, gets infinitely more complex. Now, some people's bombs, like, in an airplane, is millions of parts and processes to produce an airplane, or, complex machinery in semiconductors, or even in food production. So they get super complex, these bill of materials that have these kind of relationships over time. You can think of it as like a big bomb tree, right? It's like it looks like a big like graph of all the different things that happen to go into a finished good. And so a lot of times what we see is it's so complex that it's hard for traditional systems to have these kind of recursive graphs across a BOM and then to optimize them, because sometimes it's I need to switch out a raw material 3 orders up in the bill of material to an alternative that's still within spec, but it comes from a different vendor and it's available. And you think about that, if I have a million parts, 10 million parts going into this product, how do I track which products, what batches of those materials go into um, a finished good? So if it's in food, how do I know that from a food safety perspective? If it's in a plane, how do I know which batch of a different chip that went into the plane, right? And so we see a lot of this kind of traceability across your supply chain and your bill of material and optimizing those so they're both within standards that optimize the best use of materials, and you're not just solving the problem by having like excess inventory around where you're holding on to all this stuff. So it's that finite balance of I want to produce the optimal product, I want to have traceability, I want to do it in a safe way, and then how do I scale that and optimize it from all the different angles? And so like that's something we see in boot camps that we literally execute against in a few days.
Thank you, Alexander.
Yeah, are you able to do like automatic cost estimations for production?
Yeah, so the cost of goods sold is another great example in a boot camp. So because we can track that bill of material, the processes, the crosses, and the lineage at whatever the finest grain you can track in your business was the batch or whatever it is, or great if it's serialized like Tesla does. Um, the idea there is that that now I can understand the cost associated with each one of those steps and understand where I'm incurring those costs, and then compare those against kind of the engineering standard or the expected cost, and then look for those variance points, and then understand, was it a process problem? Was it different because I was manufacturing at this plant, or this vendor is the person that supplied it? And so tying the optimization back with the cost of goods sold is like another great workflow we see all the time.
Chad, when you go to potential clients, what's their alternative to Palantir? Is it another supplier, or is it the internal, systems that they have today?
Well, so this is something that people always kind of think like it's all or nothing or anything. Like no, we actually are like very open. I call it an unwalled garden. Um, and it's really because everything in the platform is open source standards. So we're not having any custom languages. It's all normal things that people are going to be used to. But it's open. Like we have an SDK for the platform. There's an ontology SDK, so you can actually generate an SDK of your ontology. So like an SDK of your business. And so when we come into customers that are very defensive, like, oh, I already have this full tech stack. I already built a data lake out. Cool. Well, the data lake's the first step, but what are you doing to drive action on that? How are you monetizing this great asset that you have? And so if you've already done this work, now you can do that in Foundry and you can build out your lake and do all that. We've been able to do that for a long time. Cool. But if you've already got that asset, Foundry can just sit on there. We have a tool or a capability called virtual tables. You can just plug in top of BigQuery, Snowflake, whatever you want, Databricks, any of those, and you can just register those tables and use them to generate these workflows, to create these AI workflows. And then on the flip side of that, like when we talk about interoperability, it's like, oh, I already have this application that's running part of my business, but I want to integrate some AI functions. So we have a thing called Ontology SDK, for example, and that will generate an SDK, but it also can be the function. So you can create an AIP logic function to actually expose that through the Ontology SDK and integrate it to your homegrown application inside the business. So it's not just like, oh, you've got to replace everything. Actually, there's a better picture about, yes, like we try to meet you where you are and help you add value and really extract the value out of your data assets and your workflows. And so that's generally where I see kind of the best value proposition. And like I'm not going to go say, oh, you should replace your data, like you should do this. Like no, like you probably already have a lot of technical debt and there's a lot of things already in there. Like cool, let's leave that where it at. Like how do we get value out of it? Because that's really the proposition we try to go in with, not hey, we should replace all these other tools, they're our competitors. Like I don't see it like that, because most of our competitors, like you're talking these different things, they're like a box on our overall like architecture diagram. So they're just different pieces, and we're happy to interchange those into the bigger picture of things and interop with them.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Please request to speak. Uzi?
So I'm curious if AIP now just uses Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT, or if Palantir has their own AI platform. And then in addition, how can people get started with AIP now?
Cool. Yes, that's a great question. So on the LLM approach, we are agnostic. We're not training our own model. We're not doing anything like that. The idea here is we see LLMs as commodities, and you can see already as, I mean, the sign should be that every time these models are released, they're better performance, they're faster, they're smarter, and they cut the price by 50%. Like that's the sign of a commodity in my mind. And so as these things are being commoditized, our goal is how do you guys use them to get value? And so we're agnostic to any model. And so we have a kind of a model catalog that we host the different models you can have access to through whether it's Azure OpenAI service, you can have GPT-4o or any of those kind of things, Claude and Claude 3.5 through like Bedrock, or Gemini 1.5 Pro, any of those kind of models we host. You can also bring your own models. We see some customers actually fine tuning their own models and bringing them in. You can post those in the platform. You can register the endpoint and use it. Or some people have their own OpenAI endpoint they want to use. And so we can do any or all of those, and we can mix them together as well. So you hear Sham, our CTO, talk about like KLM. Sometimes you need workflows that need to be able to have a higher level of confidence. So we actually can use multiple multiple LLMs together, or even in parallel, and then compare the output from these to understand, did I have a hallucination? If I get consensus across 3 different LLMs from 3 different providers, and I get that consensus, I have a very high confidence this is right. So these like high value workflows where you can afford to do that, we can do that as a part of our framework. Or if I have an agent and I want to use GPT 3.5 to do entity extraction because it's easy and cheap, and then I want to do that a couple different things, and then I want to use GPT 4.0 for a better reasoning function, I can actually do all that in one agent. So ours is about bringing that whole framework together, managing a production. We have an evaluation
Can you guys hear
framework for
Chad?
these. Yeah.
Yes.
You can still hear me?
Yes, you're good. You can
Okay.
continue.
So anyway, so the idea is any LM anywhere. Same thing with kind of compute anywhere. There's a lot of different development stuff. So the one thing I actually want to talk about is about how we get started. And I'm going to put a couple of links in the chat here as well. I believe this works. I'm not a spaces expert. Maybe Amit can help me. Let's see him here. The idea here around getting started. So we have a development tier. It's free. All the tools I just talked about are there. It's not like a restricted tier. The developer tier is open. You can sign up for it for free and actually get access to the whole platform. Now, there's some restrictions on this, like you can only have 5 users and there's a certain amount of compute. So it's not open-ended from a compute standpoint. But you can do a lot of really cool stuff in workflows, to test things out, develop it, try things out. And there are some people on here that I see their faces that actually are doing this and actually building. Some people are building their startup on it. So it's pretty cool stuff. So if you go to build.palantir.com, you can sign up, get your own free developer tier. There's a bunch of different stuff on the build.palantir.com as far as like places to get started. And then on the other side, if you want to like jumpstart on the learning, there's learn.palantir.com. So if you sign up for an account and then you go to learn.palantir.com, you can go through some of the courses and that kind of stuff. But the one thing I really wanted to call out, and I'll see if this posts here, is we have a DevCon coming up. So our first developer conference coming up in November here. And I'm going to put a link to it in the chat here. And what the developer conference really is it's small. So we're going to have a lot of our kind of most elite customers are going to be there. And so there's 100+ people, but real intimate. The idea is for builders, developers to be able to communicate and talk about what they're doing, different techniques, new ideas. We're going to launch some new products there, so we're going to do that. We also can help people jumpstart kind of their development work. But the cool part is we want to open this up not just to our existing customers. We have a thing called the DevCon Fellowship, and that's what I just posted in there, and is the link. And so people can go register for the AIP platform, and there's a link in the post I had there. You can sign up, build something cool, and we want to keep it open ended. So get creative. Like we're seeing submissions around, building hiking apps, to do apps. We're seeing like news analysis. We're seeing all sorts of cool stuff that people are building. And then you can submit that and like tag me or Sham or whoever, and submit it as well on the website. And we're going to pick the top developers out of there and give them a trip to DevCon. And they're going to get to meet the whole team, work with all these developers, and get kind of a jump start to it. So free to get started, and then people can jump into the dev community and the dev fellowship and actually come build with us for 2 days.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for chat? Please request to speak. Omar, welcome. How are you?
Hey, doing good.
Any
Omar.
questions? Omar, do you have any questions for Chad?
No, not right now. Just listening in. I think we did go to Palantir a few months back, and I'm a Palantir investor now. Excited that they're entering the S&P 500. But yeah, he gave me a whole breakdown of their platform and told me a lot of stuff I didn't know not too long ago.
Yeah. I tell you what, I remember
Chad,
Omar picked it up pretty quickly across the. As I was putting it down, he was seeing it and got it. So it was cool to get to show off the platform.
Thank you. JC?
Yeah, Chad. Hey, thanks for coming into this space. I've got a son that's in the Marine Corps who's currently deployed. I've got another son who's in the Navy on a nuclear sub, and he's deployed. I myself personally, I'm a Marine veteran, and I just really appreciate everything that you're doing for my boys. I will tell you, when I was a Marine in 1988, if somebody would have come up to me and said, "Hey, we're going to implement some ontological processes into how we deploy you on the battlefield," I would have thought they were about to take my wisdom teeth out. So it's great to hear that these kids are, learning a lot of great new ways to protect themselves and have the best information possible on the battlefield. I mean, let's just be blunt. When I was in, we were going by the seat of our pants and talking to people. So I'm just really, really appreciative. I know you can't talk about much of what you're doing there, and obviously I appreciate that, but I just wanted to get on and say thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you for your service and your family's service as well.
Alexander?
Yeah, Chad, are there any specific thing that you know for sure that you and your team does better than anyone else?
Getting generative AI workflows into production, in like real production, not in a pilot or a POC. I think
Okay, so
go ahead.
why is that? And who do you do better versus?
I mean, we routinely come into these boot camps where people have spent 6 months with these other cloud providers doing their co-pilots and deploying them. And I routinely talk to customers who, I deployed 5,000 seats of Copilot, but I have no idea if it's adding value. I haven't seen a difference. So we often walk into where everyone is excited about it, kind of deploy these different pilots and POCs of things, and they're like, I don't really see a transformative value. And it's because chat on its own is just natural language, querying of your data, essentially, is what these copilots are doing, which might make you a little bit more efficient, a little bit better in certain ways, but it's not transformative. It's not 10 times better. And that's really what we're focused on. And the reason that we can do that better faster is because of the connected tool chain that we have to be able to deploy these things. The ontology is key to that, because in order to get those Gen AI workflows there, you have to model these things in the ontology. So like Dr. Karp says all the time, like chips and ontology, and that really comes back to what he's trying to say is it's about, I need the chips for training and running and inferencing these things. The LLMs are becoming commodities, but in order to extract value, and he kind of said like, the LLMs are like hydrocarbons. It's a great example. But hydrocarbons alone are great, but you can't get value out of them until you actually process and run them. And that's really where the ontology is kind of the refinement of those into something that's valuable. And so really the connected tool chain that we have to drive that. And the reason we're moving so much quicker is because we're at the edge with customers cycling very, very, very quickly. And so I think that's where we have a competitive advantage. Is like I might be at a boot camp and see this new edge case about an AI workflow, and I see the pain by trying to implement it. Well, that might be a feature 2 weeks from now, right? Like that's literally at the speed we're working at. And a lot of the features that I launched, I think I even launched a feature when Omar had posted something about Palantir, like in his in his replies. But like we're launching features weeks after we have the idea, and so that's the speed. And so that iterative speed on top of the fast pace that these LLMs are moving are allowing us to actually deploy them in real world in meaningful ways.
Thank you, Uzi.
Yeah, iterative speed is something that I think both communities love, especially with FSD shipments. So I first wanted to, bounce a little bit from products to more of the culture of Palantir. So first, why was Palantir founded? Who are the founders? And then can you dive into the culture that there is today?
Yeah. So, post 9/11, the report after 9/11 really showed that we had all the information, but it was just siloed across different agencies and groups. And so that led us to believe, like, well, why do we have these silos, right? And then, in that case, like, can we build tools that bring the data together across all these, but without violating people's privacy and civil liberties? And so, that's really the focus of the technology. A lot of the original crew came out of PayPal, so Peter Thiel, and then Alex Karp, Joe Lonsdale, and Stephen Cohen, really the main founders. And Alex, and Stefan and Peter are still pretty heavily involved. Obviously, Alex is. But the idea behind it was, how do we bring those things together and protect people's civil liberties while also protecting our country from terrorism and other things? And so that was really the genesis. And then about 2014, 2015, we started to see that was the same problems from really, from the government space and this intelligence space is enterprises. In the enterprise, I have silos of data, my business is not communicating. I might have the answer, but it's spread out all over the place. Same problem, different context. And so those same concepts around ontology apply in the enterprise space. And so that's really where things started to pick up. And 2017 is really kind of where Foundry took off in the commercial space and really has been growing pretty exponentially there. And so that's really where we started. But from a culture perspective, it's very kind of like we refer to it as like an artist colony. There's a bunch of weirdos, strange people, super smart all over the place, and there's not as much hierarchy. I mean, Dr. Karp has doctorate in philosophy, in German philosophy, and like just thinking differently. I'm a college dropout. Like you just got a bunch of strange people that think differently, that we have the freedom and autonomy to go try and do things. But at the end of the day, it comes back to where is the momentum. And so that's really where the company is following momentum. We try things, we see if there's momentum, we keep pushing it. And as there's more momentum, we keep investing heavier and heavier. And that's really the cultural perspective about how we move very quickly in this space, especially like when Gen AI came out, we had AIP come out a few months later. Like that, and then the momentum on that has just accelerated, and our growth is just exponential. Now we're in the S&P 500. It seems surreal. So anyway, I don't know if there's other questions on the culture. Happy to answer that as well.
Uzi?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the sense of urgency I see from both Palantir and Tesla. So does Karp instill that, or how do they get started, and how's it still in motion?
Well, it's because we sit side by side with your customer. It's not hard to not feel urgency when you're sitting there feeling the pain with your customer. If it hurts, that drives urgency. If you're having a hard time keeping your business open from COVID, or now with this dock worker strike, that pain is real. And so if you truly want to go sit with your customers and feel that pain, that drives urgency. And that's really what we see, whether it's in the healthcare or in these other spaces. That's what I see drive the urgency across things. Is like there's no time like to waste talking about things. Let's go build it. Let's go try it. And so that builder mentality, engineer first. I mean, we've got about 4,000 employees across the company. Most of us are engineers. There's very few salespeople. Most of the sales are done by people like me that are engineering first. And so that's really the culture, is just build it, go, build, do. And yeah, Dr. Karp is very much the energy behind a lot of that. He gets excited. Let's go do it. Let's just do it. Right. And that's something we hear pretty continuously across all the leadership.
Chad, couple more questions. One on culture. How does Palantir balance ethical considerations? Are there any red lines when deciding to take on projects, and who makes the final call?
Yeah, so we have an entire privacy and civil liberties group and privacy and civil liberties engineers that are embedded with us. So you kind of think of it like a separation of concerns where we have these people that are really looking out for, is this the right thing to do? Should we do this? Not just can we do it? So that's embedded across the whole company. I mean, I'm often in reviews about new customers, new projects, new things where we have the PCO engineers side by side with us discussing, okay, should we do this? If we do this, how do we make sure we protect people's liberties? So that's embedded and ingrained in the culture. And these engineers have, a lot of free reign to not only help us engineer things in the right way to protect people's civil liberties, but also kind of raise the flag of like, hey, I'm not sure we should do this. And so those calls are made across the company quite often, and I've been a part of some of those conversations as well. But there's a great, we actually have a separate Twitter feed for our PCL engineers, and they're happy to answer questions as well. I can throw that in the chat, but there's a lot of really good stuff. We put out much more blogs. There's also a dedicated blog to the PCL stuff about how we actually do that in reality, from like what is the engineering concerns we have around protecting your privacy? How is that done? How do we ensure that data is obscured and minimalized, so that even if there is exposure for some reason, that it's minimalized? Like there's all these different steps that we're taking. And so I can put a link to their Twitter page. It's got a bunch of blog posts and other things that talk on this as well.
Thank you. What do you think Palantir will look like in 10 years? Could it play a role in autonomous systems or even a Palantir AI assistant?
I see Palantir being the operating system for the modern enterprise. And I know it sounds kind of lofty or like vague BS, but like I see at the core of operations, whether you're in a plant, you're in a boardroom, or you're an analyst in the logistics group, um, you need these capabilities to be able to operate and be more efficient. And so, like, I see us being the fabric that's going to be driving deeper and deeper into those capabilities. And so, like, traditionally, you'll see us come in and augmenting things. I think you'll see more and more of us driving the core capabilities. And so, I see us really starting to metastasize that into something real. And so, there's a lot of really cool stuff coming up in that space. And I think if you think of a core thing on the enterprise commercial space, it's how do I actually operate my business? Usually these ERPs are fragmented. They have a subset of the things. So then I go buy some more SaaS products and stack them on to get the full capabilities I need. And now I have this very segmented and fragmented ecosystem. How do we fix that? Dr. Karp calls that the Tower of Babel. How do we fix the Tower of Babel through creating this connected ecosystem? And that's where I think we're going to be core across that. And the deeper and deeper we go, the more and more we can help our customers drive revenue, and then we'll get paid for that eventually, right?
Let's see. I was told that Palantir emphasizes human decision making alongside AI to avoid over reliance on automation. Is that true, first of all? And then secondly, would you please expand on that? It's true.
Yes, it's humans plus AI teaming together to be more effective. And there's actually Sham, our CTO, did a great talk actually, I think it was about 2010. I'm sure someone out there, one of the Palantir fanboys I see on here can find it. It's really a cool talk from Sham about the human computer symbiosis and how each of them alone can, even through automation, can do a lot of things, but all of them working together actually, is 1+1=3. And that's really where we go, is the human computer symbiosis is really the way to go. Not only from the standpoint of like, how do you help people from a change management standpoint of like integrating people in the process, but how does AI take the non-differentiated heavy lifting off of people and allow them to be strategic? How do people work with computers to come up with strategies? And those are the things where the ontology is key, because that's the connective tissue between AI and people. And if we're both working on that same backbone of a digital twin and ontology, then AI and people are really working together. So that's actually absolutely the core of our thesis. I saw someone post one of the slides from Akshay, our chief architect, the other day, that shows that human plus AI teaming is core to us.
Thank you. Uzi?
Yeah, I just put in the video with Sham from 2010. I also know it's 2:40, so I wanted to thank you, Chad. I don't know if you have time for more questions, but it was awesome having you.
I've got time for a few more questions. This is fun.
Okay, great. This is far out, trying to understand the next 10, 20 years. Can you describe the world without Palantir in 10, 20 years, and how is it different with Palantir?
Oh man, that's a big question. I think it really comes back to driving the values of protecting people's civil liberties, whether it's in the enterprise or it's in the government space. How can we protect us as humans and our thought process, our freedom of speech, and what we're doing? But how can we also start to become more efficient, communicate more effectively? Because there's so much kind of entropy between business functions, between businesses, and that entropy has lost, revenue, it's lost gains. And so what I really see Palantir driving, whether it's in the intelligence space, the government space, the commercial space, it's how do I reduce the friction? How do I connect the world to make a globally optimized decisions while protecting people's liberties? How do I share data in ways that still protect me and my data, but still optimize the overall solution? So we have lots of things we're working on in the space of scaling, connecting. Like right now, these examples I showed you were in one company, but how do we start to connect companies, creating marketplaces, drive things, and reduce the amount of entropy between these processes? And I think that's really where we can drive. And if we, for example, let's just give one example of this in the real world. Let's say you've got kind of food supply chain from retailer back to production, back to farms. Each one of those, you're holding product, you're having inventory, you have buffers, there's communication gaps, there's shipments of trucks that are not full. And each time you're moving across companies, across business units, across these things, you're creating these inefficiencies and these lost, wasted goods, these wasted miles of fuel. How do we actually connect those back so that, the demand signal from a customer at a store is feeding back through the retailer to the vendors producing the food, that feeds back to the people on the farms growing or raising animals or those things. And so like in that simplified example, can Palantir be the backbone that connects all these enterprises together to reduce the friction and inefficiencies, but do it in a safe and secure way where you're not giving away your secrets, right? And that's really the key, I think, across this is like how do we create that safe, connected ecosystem across the world?
Thank you. Omar, anything on your front?
No, I completely agree.
Okay. Uzi, do you have any other questions?
I mean, I can go for like another hour asking about the defense part, but I can let other people speak.
Okay. I do want to give a shout out while Chad is here to our sponsors real quick, because they make this space possible. They make people like Chad be able to join and connect with interested, employees or investors. So I think it would be remiss if I didn't. Tesla Live is proudly sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. And because you're part of the Tesla Live community, Joa is hooking you up. Use code TSLA Live for a special discount at checkout. And Pay More. Pay More buys, sells, trades, and recycles electronics because Pay More believes the best technology doesn't have to come at the cost of our planet or your wallet. Join the Pay More revolution or visit one of their 100 stores near you or paymore.com. All right. Uzi?
Oh, I also, talking about Joe Life, wanted to shout out Eliano. He does the merch for Palantir, and they've made hoodies after my suggestion. So, I love both Palantir and Tesla and merch from both companies.
Great. Chad, do you see, I mean, this is kind of almost science fiction, but I don't think it's as science fiction as people think. Could Palantir's data platforms one day help run cities or even governments autonomously? If so, how would that look like in practice, and how would it handle complex decision making for societies?
Well, I think, like in my mind, that's a system of systems, right? And so I think this comes back to the human-computer symbiosis and like what's really important. What are the outcomes we're trying to drive through automation? And I think this is where setting up systems to help automate with human review, but capturing the human feedback and that reinforcement learning. I mean, that's key to what we do a lot of places, and I think that applies to kind of the cities and running these larger scale things. How do we do that without losing the human in this? How do we capture the institutional knowledge, the human effects of these things? How do we, and then how do you manage that over time? And so that's where we really like to build these kind of connected workflows with humans in the loop, getting that feedback, taking that feedback to make it more efficient, but also adjusting with them over time as they shift and things change, right? The world's very dynamic. And so I think that's key is it's not just automation. It's how do we keep the human in the loop? How do we keep humans in the touch? Because otherwise we're going to live in this very stale, blank thing that is deterministic from a centralized people doing the automation. I don't think that's what anyone wants. And so I think, having different systems and then using things to help build the system of systems in this overall arching ecosystem. So if it's, robo taxis, hopefully here in a few days we hear about, that's going to be one system, an overall system of a city. And so that's really the way I would think about it is it's a system of systems and we want to keep humans in the loop. Otherwise we're gonna live in a very dystopian world. And I don't think that's what anyone wants.
Got it. Thank you. Elanio, you may go ahead.
Hey, I was just gonna say, Uzi, I appreciate the shout out and thanks for supporting the store. I will say that you're probably the 100th person that I came across since I launched the store that asked for the hoodie. But I do appreciate you. I do appreciate you giving the nudge, and also just Chad. Really love what you're saying, man. Really, really happy that you're a colleague, and I just want to quickly say that I think everything that Chad's saying is so awesome, and I think at Palantir, it's like we are big proponents of peace through strength. So I know there's like a lot of questions about you know the military application, but I think taking a step back, like when you think about peace through strength, like up until really like a decade or 2 decades ago, you thought about like tanks and F-35s and ships and all that stuff. But I think today, like when we think about strength, it's like systems of systems and like the ability to bring all that together and to have the speed advantage over your adversary. And then taking a step even further back, it's economic prosperity and security powers national security. You need GDP growth. You need to outperform your adversaries, not just on the battlefield, but in the factories and through commerce. And I think that when we think about the implications of AI in the West, to Chad's point about delivering outcomes and delivering advantages for our customers, that's what it comes down to. Because when you put that all together, when you pull it all together, that's an economy and it scales, and that's how you really win, and that's how you protect the West. So I love what Chad is saying, and I think we're super proud of that story, and we're really excited about the next 10 to 20 years to play an integral role, sort of in this competition in ensuring that the United States maintains its economic advantage, but also its national security advantage. So appreciate you all. Thanks for having Chad on, and yeah, store.palantir.com. Let's go.
Thank you.
Our chief mercenary.
Thank you very much. Chad, how can we, as Tesla Live community, help you achieve your goals?
Honestly, I love the question. I love the big questions you guys had today. Those are great as we think about kind of the world and what we're trying to do. So that's awesome. But also just, people getting out there and building. Like I'm a big proponent here of like I finish a lot of these demo videos I do with like, let's go build, just go build it, try it out. And so I think if anything, people get out there and go to build.palantir.com, sign up, try stuff, give us feedback. You'll see me answering questions left and right on Twitter about technical stuff, ideas. The more feedback, the more ideas. I think that's the stronger the community goes, and it really kind of goes towards the overarching goal that we have is really promoting Western values towards the whole world, and how we promote that, and that's through building. And Shalom talks about reindustrialize and how do we create this industrial defense base. That's through building, not through talking about it. And so, if anything, the more that people can go build, give feedback, and have the community, I think that's the biggest thing. So I've been here listening to you guys, watching the Tesla communities and for years now. So I've been lurking silently, but I'm happy to be here talking to you guys today.
Thank you, Alexander.
Chad, do you have any projects in Europe, if you can speak on it?
Yeah, there's a lot of work in EU in different spaces. I'm trying to think through. Kind of Airbus is probably the biggest one and kind of the early customer. So a lot of the business operations. There's quite a few YouTube videos. I'm sure John here. I see him listening. He's our video master here. He can find some videos on the Airbus work that we've done as well. But that's really optimization about, like, if you see the difference in kind of where people are in the kind of the airline industry and especially in the airplanes. Airbus has been killing it, and they've been really executing, and that execution comes from things that are built in driving at the edge. And we did a lot of work with them through Airbus, Skywise now. So that whole kind of connected thing in the EU is big. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. I'm sure some of our followers will point out other things I've missed, but yeah, we definitely have growth there in the EU. It's not nearly as fast as the growth as we see in the US.
Okay, great. Uzi, any other questions on your end? I think I'm done with my questions.
I'm gonna have to run here. I got to do a live YouTube stream with Amit as well here, so I've got to run and get ready for that here and get over with Amit.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Chad, for stopping by.
All right, thanks, guys. See ya.
All right, take care. All right, let's go to JC. JC, what did you take away from this conversation?
No, I thought it was great. I mean, it's definitely something I need to get smarter on, Ontology and Foundry. I mean, I get it from a high level perspective. It's like you said, it's process of processes or whatever, if you're from Canada. But I think there's definitely a lot of really good runway there. I think at the end there, I was like, man, I think these guys are going to disrupt SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, Great Plains. I could definitely see them, really being big. And I'm not a shareholder. I mean, like I said, I'm a little more than a shareholder. I have 2 sons in the United States military, so yeah. I'm way beyond a shareholder.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about this tomorrow as well, and we'll do a debrief. I need to kind of reflect on it a little bit. But we have Machine on the board. Machine, what did you take away from that conversation? What did you learn that you didn't know before?
Well, to be honest, Palantir is a complicated company that I really need to do a deep dive in if I really wanted to understand to a level that I thought would be worth investing in. Some of the companies I work for do work with Palantir. I do like their CEO. I do like the type of stuff they're doing. I'm not sure on what the total addressable market would be for a company that's mainly focused on, let's say, government agencies for revenue. That's not usually the type of business that I am very excited by, having worked in that space. But I agree with their mission. Dubious things like this guy seems like a Swedish plant, Wahlquist.
So
it's like another
before you muddied it,
the waters. Not really American, so that's questionable.
Can you not hear me? Yeah, I do actually want to build a DCF on Palantir. I think that's the only way really to understand the company at a deeper level. So I'm going to do that in the future, as well as a DCF for Tesla. And maybe Uzi and I can do that together live. JC, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be difficult, though, for a company like Palantir, Yaman. I mean, to a certain degree, there's going to be a large chunk of their stuff that's just not going to be able to be public to you, right? Especially from a military strategic standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of work with what you have. When you're building a DCF, you never have 100% of the data. There's inside information and everything. So obviously some companies are more challenging than others, but you work with what you have. All right, that's not a problem.
Yep.
Uzi, what did you learn that you didn't know before with this conversation?
Oh, first of all, thought it was going to be like 20, 30 minutes, and it lasted almost an hour. So, that's a signal. It went pretty well, and I wanted it to succeed. I did learn a decent amount. Chad went into great detail. He was pretty gracious with all of our questions from going from it's not Ontology, from Foundry to Ontology to AIP. I think that was the part that I wanted to be fleshed out the most. You can only get so much asking a chatbot or researching yourself, but hearing it from the horse's mouth too is the best thing, especially when they're front line. I really am fascinated with their approach overall.
Okay, Alexander, what did you learn that you didn't know before this conversation?
Well, first of all, I want to say I can actually relate to what he said about going out to customers, trying to help them, trying to make them more productive. That is also what I do. And I learned that there are probably many things that I could use with AI to organize the workflow that I do and what the company I work for do.
Wait, does that mean you're going to reach out to Palantir and try to become a customer?
I'm going to look into it because I have the ideas started flowing. I'll just say that.
Okay, good. And I learned that Palantir really wants to put human at the center. That's something I didn't know before this conversation. They're big on human AI, symbiosis instead of just full automation of things. I thought that was really interesting, and I didn't know that. JC?
Yeah, and you had a really good question, Yaman, about the autonomous governmental institutions. I mean, we're still in an environment where our economy rides on 70-plus-year-old dudes getting in a room once a month and talking about which way they want interest rates to go. And I made a post one time. It's like we laugh at the ancient Greeks because they climbed, Mount Parnassus to talk to the Oracle of Delphi and figure out, whether they were going to fight somebody. We laugh at that, but yet we wait with bated breath once a month or whatever to hear 7 old dudes come out of a room and tell us whether our mortgages are going to go up or down. And I could see like autonomous, bringing some sort of autonomy or blockchain type of solutions to that. Obviously not today, but sounds like that's kind of they're thinking about those type of things as well. So I really like that question you had, Jan.
Thank you. I didn't do this more as much as I should have, but Alan just reminded me on YouTube Live Chat. If you're on X, please take a moment to go up to the top of your screens and click the YouTube link and like the video. It is with your help that this channel will grow. And the more we grow, the more we can have interviews and people like Chad come in and explain their companies. We have to have a wider audience for that to continue. So even if you're on X, please take a moment to go up to the top, click the link, the YouTube link, and like that video now. And we'll take a 20-second break for people to do that. Alexander will count down from 30. Alexander?
Okay. 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Gesundheit.
Yeah, that actually added 30 likes. Thank you, Alexander. Maybe different language is the way to go here. All right. So JC said he believes that Palantir will take share from SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft, disrupt SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft. JC said, interesting. Uzi, do you agree with that?
Who?
Come on. Okay, I got you.
No, did you say my name or someone else?
Yeah, I say your name. Do you think
Oh, it's
Palantir
gonna-
will disrupt SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft?
It will destroy SAP. You don't need that. Microsoft, they're somewhat compatible with. I heard they have a government contract with was it Azure? So I think the ambition to win is clearly there. I think they perceive Google as more of a competitor and hate them more. They don't Snowflake they really dislike. I see John in the audience and he's a clip master. So if he wants to come up and provide more color, feel free to. But yeah, I think their competition, like they take their competition very seriously. They just won't outright say that right here. Maybe Karp will rant a little bit about it, but SAP you don't really need.
Who did you say was in the audience? John? Yeah, he's welcome to come up. And Enrique is also welcome to come up and tell us about Palantir some more.
I see Garcia Cap too. He's great account, pretty funny. He should have a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, he's welcome to come up as well. I mean, this episode has been mostly about. I should change the name to PLTR Live. All right, Uzi, thanks again for setting this up. It was excellent, and thanks for coming up with good questions as well. Good. All right, I mean, if nobody wants to come up, then that's probably about it for us. I'm going to leave the X space open for another minute and for people to go up to the top of your screens on your way out, and please hit that like button for the YouTube video to help us grow. Thank you very much, everybody, and I will chat with you all tomorrow.